Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here with a book review. I had originally planned on going out in my garden and seeing what was out there and maybe doing a garden tour today, but it's raining and I can't bring my camera out in the rain. So instead we're going to talk books, because what better thing to do on a rainy day than read a little gardening book, or plant book in this case. So this is The Witch's Guide to Wildcraft by J.D. Walker. It's published by Llewellyn in 2021. I just read this book for a book club that I've actually joined, and this was the book that we picked for the month of February, and I have to say I was pretty pleasantly surprised by this book, and there's actually a lot of information in here that's still pertinent for those of us who garden. So it's not really a garden book, but it has a lot of really good information, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this is a book primarily designed for wildcrafting, which of course is the harvesting of plants that you find growing abundantly around you in the wild, or at the very least in less cultivated places. So with that in mind, of course, the book's primary focus is talking about those plants specifically, and those are plants that are very common and easy to find in most places in the country. Obviously, there's going to be some exceptions, such as places like the Sonoran Desert. You're not going to find some of these plants there. But if you live in any of the temperate areas in this country of the United States, you're probably going to find most of the plants here. And some of them are actually weeds. Things like chickweed, clover, grass, dandelions, honeysuckle's a weed in a lot of places, especially here in this house. So lots of really good information on how to sort of build up an herbal apothecary and use herbs without having to lay out all kinds of money for, buying herbal supplies that quite honestly could be of questionable, sometimes you buy things and you don't really know whether they're actually giving you what they say they are, or, you don't know how old they are. And let's be honest, you're always going to have better magical effects with things that you put the effort into doing yourself, and that includes finding and harvesting plants. So this is really, really handy for that. There's a lot of information, like I said, that also is important for us in gardening. The author talks about a lot about the plant nomenclature system and how accurate naming of plants is important, which it is. So I love that she goes over that. There's a lot of information on the USDA growing zones and basically what plants you're going to find based on those zones. In fact, she even gives, where is it? See if I can find it. It's not a great map, but it is a map of the USDA growing zones. I know it's in here. There it is. Look at that for the United States. So, like I said, it's not a great map, and you can find better maps on the internet. But the fact that she actually includes that information is like, so refreshing for me. There's a lot of information in here on planetary association of plants, as well as how planetary and lunar associations for when the best time to harvest your plants is, which is something that I haven't really seen elsewhere, and I was really excited to find here. Obviously that information is out there, but it's a little more esoteric, so for her to bring it more to the forefront was really exciting for me. There's also just, in general, just basic information on the actual process of harvesting a plant. Not only when should you harvest, which of course is covered by the planetary associations, but also like how you need to harvest, how much you should harvest, what you need to do when you harvest, if you want to do any rituals to thank the plant. That's really big, and I love that that's in there. But like I said, the biggest section of the book, which is part 2, that probably covers, let me see, yeah, it's about 2/3 of the book, is actually talking about the 32 plants themselves that are part of this book. So like I said, a lot of weeds, but also a lot of common landscape plants such as oak, boxwood, willow, things of that nature. Geraniums are in there, not pelargoniums. She mentions that, which is important, why you need to know the names. But yeah, so magical properties are given for every plant. She also gives at least one magical working or spell that incorporates each of those plants, which of course is really nice for those of you who need more of that to sort of build up your working wheelhouse of spell work. For those of us like myself who kind of are accustomed to building their own spells, they at least kind of give you a jumping off point of like, oh, how can I change or modify that? So the, you know, I'm never detrimental about people including spells, because even if I'm not going to use it myself, I may modify it. So that's a really good resource in there. Some of the downsides I want to mention, there's a couple of typographical errors, in particular like errors of omission. Like I know there was one, I don't think I'm going to find it, but I know there was at least one of the plants where she talks about making like a spray, an exorcism spray with the plant, and she talks about like taking the plant material and some dragon's blood and putting it in a vessel and then straining it off, but she doesn't actually mention what liquid goes in the vessel with them. So again, just a small error of omission, so be aware of those. This is not a very good field guide for plant identification. There are some pictures of the plants, but they're not, and there's also a description as well, but I would probably pair this with either a good field guide, like a Peterson's guide, or even better, just, you know, join like a foraging class, or go to a local garden in your area that has plant markers in order to get an actual directory, hands-on of looking at a plant and being able to identify it without just relying on a book. Because I think that's the best way to identify a plant safely, is to actually interact in person with that plant and know for sure. Have someone tell you, basically, either by a person who's standing right there who knows the plant, or at the very least a marker from somebody who knew the plant and marked the plant for you of what the plant looks like and what it is. So, let me think. Oh, one other thing I want to mention, and honestly this was the only real crushing disappointment for me with this book. This plant that's pictured on the cover right here, which is in Eula Helenium or Helicampaign, is not mentioned in the book. It's not one of the 32 plants. So I got really stoked when I saw the cover of this book, and I was like, oh, not many people talk about Helicampaign, and it's not in here. So apparently I'm going to have to rectify that in a future video. So sometime this summer, maybe, when it's in bloom, I'll show you my little Helicampaign plant, because it's one of my favorites. But look, it's even in like the little artwork here, but it's not in the book. So, but anyway, if you're getting started, if you don't have a garden and need a good resource for plants, just, you know, how to look for plants around your own home, this is a great book. I actually do recommend it. So give it a whirl. Check it out from the library if you can't afford it. But yeah, it's a fun book, and I did enjoy reading it. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.